Dead organic material, stuff that has built up beneath the surface of our earth for millions of years. If left alone, it would take a very, very long time to reach back up to the surface and to oxidize into that behind me. But we have instead turned it into something else. We have turned it into fossil fuel. Fossil fuels are that. They're dead organic material. Stuff that was buried deep beneath the surface of the earth, meant to be undisturbed, meant to take millions of years to well back up to the surface and millions more to oxidize. So it would take millions of years for this stuff to actually experience oxidation. But what we have actually done is we have actually taken that stuff and we've burned it. And here's why. In the 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s, we realized this stuff burns really well. And when it burns really well, it releases a lot of energy. And that energy that's released can then fuel our lifestyles. It could fuel machines that can do the work of 100 people in minutes. That sounds like a pretty good deal if you ask me. It can move things massively from one place to another. There are all kinds of major benefits of the energy that has been produced by burning of fossil fuels. And in fact, the burning of fossil fuels have basically allowed us to have the life that we have. However, there is a dark side to this. Because what we have literally done is we have taken a process that would have taken millions of years on its own, and we made it instant. That has consequences. That has consequences. And the reality is that as Earth's population has grown, we have kept burning more, demanding more, needing more, using more, and therefore emitting more. And if you take a look, carbon dioxide emissions by humans, have just gone up exponentially over the past roughly 100, 150-ish years. So as populations have grown, as carbon dioxide emission, or as demand for energy, as demand for a modern standard of living has gone up, our dependency on fossil fuels has gone up as well. Our dependency on fossil fuels has also gone up. And it just keeps going up as more economies develop, as more populations grow, the demand keeps going up. The scary thing, though, is that it's not actually the main culprits that you would think that it was. Let me tell you what I mean. Here in the United States, we are seen as usually the main blamers, or the main ones to be blamed, the main culprits. And there is some truth to that. Cumulatively speaking, the United States has emitted by far the most carbon dioxide in the entire world. But we are very quickly being dethroned. We are no longer the biggest emitter on Earth. The biggest emitter on Earth is actually China. It's actually China. However, there are two things that need to be considered there. Thing number one, China has a much, much, much larger population than the United States. We have a population of around 330 million people. China has a population of around 1.4 billion people. Now, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but they have a population approximately 4.5 times as big as ours. And no, they don't emit 4.5 times as much carbon dioxide as we do. They definitely still emit a lot, but on a per capita basis, they're still less than us. So that's the first thing. Second thing is their economy over the last 20 years has undergone a rapid growth. China went from a relatively poor country to now an industrial powerhouse. And not just because they make all of our stuff, but they themselves have actually seen a lot of economic development. As their population has grown, their standard of living is growing as well. Now, that being said, is it fair for us as Americans who've had the benefit of industrializing to actually go over to China and tell them, hey, 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 you can't emit anymore. We all got to cut back now. We're all going to cut back. So you have to cut back too. We had the benefit of basically being able to use what we needed to use to industrialize, using what we needed to use to grow. We actually had that benefit. Is it really fair for us to tell China, hey, 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 you can't do that? I would argue not quite. That being said, they do need to. They definitely need to cut back on their emissions, and so do we, and so do many others. But we can't just tell them, no, 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 you can't do it. We have to help them. Now, that being said, there's a lot of geopolitical issues behind that, right? I mean, obviously, and I know that I'm teaching a very diverse group of people. I know a lot of my students come from China. I also have a lot of students who come from Taiwan, from Hong Kong, from Vietnam, from the Philippines, from Japan, from the Koreas, as well as a lot of stateside people. And any of you are aware that there are definitely a lot of geopolitical and human rights issues in relationship to other countries. And so there's a lot of moving parts. And I'm not going to speak into any of that over who's right, who's wrong, what needs to be done about that, because that's not my place. But what I will say is simply from a we need to cut back perspective, we need to help developing economies cut back. We can't just say, hey, we got to use all we want, but you can't. Rules for thee, but not for me. No, we can't do that. So what can we do? Well, I don't have an answer for that. That's something we will talk a little bit more about when we get into the solutions to climate change. That's going to be later on in the course.